Hello everyone and welcome to a really awesome game from round 3 of the second event of the 5 events that will be happening in the Julius Baer Chess Challengers or Challengers Chess Tour. It's Nihal Sarin versus Vincent Keymer, and it's, well, just a brilliant attacking game from both sides. And if you remember, they have two very strong coaches. One is Vladimir Kramnik, the other one is Judit Polgar. For the first event, I mentioned it briefly, but just in case you've missed it, here are the members of Team Polgar. The two gentlemen fighting in this game are both members of Team Polgar, so Vincent Keymer and Nihal Sarin, and these are the members of Team Kramnik, so you have a better idea of what's going on. So it's a rapid tournament, it's a single round robin, and the winner of the event will get $3,000 as well as a place on the next event of the $1.5 million Meltwater Champions Chess Tour. So quite a lot to fight for, but just all in all, these guys and the girls are basically the future of chess, well, it's just very nice to see all of them fighting in one tournament. So without further ado, let's check it out. And if you guys have any other suggestions from this tournament, do share with the hashtag suggestion. I've seen some of the games so far. All the games that I've seen are really just incredible. So I'm sure we're gonna show a few more from this event. So without further ado, let's check it out. Nihal with the white pieces opens with e4. We have c6 by Keymer. We have d4 and d5. Sorry about that. So going for the Caro-Kann defense, we have e5 advancing the pawn, and now bishop to f5. And now we often had this position, but then we always say that g4 here is an extremely sharp line. It's called the bayonet attack, and we almost never see it in top level chess. But here in this game, Nihal decided to play it, and here we have g4, the bayonet attack. So bishop can go to g6 or to e4. You could also go back with bishop to d7, but mostly bishop to g6 and bishop to e4 is what's played here. Bishop to g6 a bit more popular. Here first we have bishop to e4, now baiting this f3 move. So f3, pushing the bishop all the way back. And now again, you could continue with h4, threatening h5 to trap the bishop, but there's a very tricky line here, and that is e6. And this is just, it's very well analyzed. It's perfectly fine for black, but you have to know what you're doing. I remember I once prepared this line with white. I played a classical game against a FIDE master, and I lost terribly. I did not prepare sufficiently. So let's see how Nihal prepared. So here he plays e6. We have f captures on e6, so black grabs the pawn, but he doubles his e pawns, and only now h4, now threatening h5. And now there are a couple of games that to reach this position. c5 is a known move here. Knight to d7, also a known move here, with the idea that was used in the game Yanni Pomnish versus Sam Shankland in 2017 World Teams Championship in Khanty-Mansisk in Russia. Nepo was able to win this game with white. However, here we have h5, and it is already now on move 7 that we have a completely new game. So white doesn't really want to capture here. If white captures, you just allow black, well, too much freedom. If you capture here, black can either capture, black can play bishop to f5. The problem is you no longer have a g-pawn or an e-pawn, so this bishop will stay here for a very long time. You just allowed this rook to roam basically freely along the h-file, and it's not going to be a pleasant game for white. So instead, after this h5 move, we have just bishop to d3, now threatening the bishop here. And now bishop captures on d3. We have queen captures on d3, and now queen to d6. You kind of know that queen to g6 will be very annoying, so you want to make some room for the king. The king can be very safe on c7, then you can develop the knight, you can bring the rook into the game, and black will play a very nice game. So here we have knight to e2, not going for a check. There's no reason to give a check if you don't gain anything from it. Knight to d7, and now bishop to f4. So using the knight to develop the bishop with tempo, the queen is under attack, and now e5. We want to get rid of this pawn as it's a doubled pawn. So here we have d captures, knight captures, now attacking the white queen. You have to be careful, although the black queen is indirectly under attack, but this would come with check, so you don't want to make that mistake. So queen to c3. Now with a double attack on the knight on e5, and now only one move here that's playable for black, and that's d4. And this now will be a very, very tricky game from, from this point on. The problem is if the queen captures, although it's defended, knight captures on f3 check just wins the queen, so you have to be careful. So after d4, we have knight captures on d4, but now comes knight captures on f3. And here, Keymer could have maybe played h captures on g4, but this is a rapid game, it's a completely unexplored territory, so the point is that it's a free pawn. There is no good move that white can make to punish this, and so it's just a free pawn, and it well, could be used to create a pass pawn by either pushing or capturing. The problem is if you ever capture this, then we again go into this queen captures on d4. And now if the queen is captured, knight f3 check picks up the queen back. And if you play this, then the problem is queen e4 check, and now the rook is lost. So maybe this pawn grab was something to consider, but like I said, it's a rapid game, you can't see everything. So here we have knight captures on f3 with check, queen captures, and now he just picks up the knight. Queen captures on d4, attacks the b2 pawn. So here we have knight to c3, developing and defending, and now we have e5. Here, castling might seem like a good idea because the white king is still in the center of the board. The problem is rook d1 will pose a lot of problems for black. The queen now has to move. You don't really have a good retreat. Then we can capture, and then all of black's forces are completely undeveloped. The white will just have a much better game here. Also, the bishop prevents the king from gaining any safety. It would be very, very hard to play this for black. So instead, we have e5 here, blocking the bishop, and now comes the bishop to g5. Now you're preventing the king from castling, but also rook to d8 is not a possibility anymore. So h captures on g4, the queen also now guards this pawn, so this is now a passed pawn, and the queen to f5 now. And now, look at this, you're not that arrow, you're controlling this, you're controlling this, you're controlling this, all of these squares are covered. And it's not all that great, so if rook to d1 comes, could be very unpleasant, or rook to f1, and then the queen can come to f7. So a lot of things happening here. So here we have knight to e7, this is the only good move, you have to develop with tempo. It attacks the queen, queen to e6, and now queen back to d7, offering a queen trade. But now you lose the e5 pawn. If you don't play this, there's really not all that much you can play. If you allow rook to f1, this is going to be very, very unpleasant. And there's no way to force the white queen back and guard your pawn. So here, queen to d7, queen captures on e5, and now queen to f5. Again, we have an offer of a queen trade. So here, queen back to e3. Nihal wants to keep the queens on the board, and now comes queenside castles. Besides queenside castles, queen to f3 was also an option. You're offering to trade queens, but also you're attacking the rook on h1. So white doesn't really have any options here. You have to trade here. And now, for example, queenside castles, you keep the black king in the middle of the board. If rook to d8, we're just going to play rook d to e1. And it's still very unpleasant for black. This pass pawn will not survive here very long, and well, you are up in development, so this would be good for white. But okay, we have castles here, and now comes another very interesting move, and that is rook to f1. The problem is, and of course, I imagine most of you realize that this is not a free piece, because after captures and captures, we can just trap the queen with rook h to e8. So now the queen is lost. So instead, after this queenside castles, we have rook to f1. This is the only way to retain advantage, as well, what do you play now? The queen has to move, and there really isn't a good retreat square for the queen. So in the game, queen captures on c2 was played, but nothing else is much better. Yes, the a7 pawn is being threatened, but if you defend this with something like queen to a5, we're just going to play rook to d1. And now, again, it's very, very hard to play this. You could trade here, for example, rook captures, we're going to play king captures, and now everything is just still undeveloped. This is still being threatened. You're going to lose this knight. You can't really move it. It's just a bad position. Then queen e8 is coming, rook f8 is coming, and it's completely winning for white. So instead, for the lack of a better move, after rook to f1, Vincent decided to capture on c2, and now we have this, queen captures on a7 is a possibility, but Nihal goes for a different idea. He first plays rook to f2. Rook to d1, also a possibility. even rook to d1, just to show it how nice it is. For example, rook captures, knight captures, and now what do you play here? Again, this is being threatened. There are no good squares for the black queen. You can't really threaten anything, and you're just going to lose a piece here. If knight d5 attacking the queen, we can just deliver this checkmate. Queen e8 check, king c7, and now queen to d8 will be checkmate. So instead, after queen captures on c2, grabbing this pawn, we have rook to f2. This is a different approach, forcing the black queen to move, and now comes queen to g6. And only now, and this queen to g6 was a bit too ambitious. Queen to d3 is the way to go, and now the thing is that once queen captures on a7, we follow the white queen. Queen to a6, and after the queen retreats, queen to e3, we just go back, queen to d6. If you deliver this check, we can follow the white queen again with queen to d7 and block this. So this is how this is how we do it, and it might be the best course of action for black. But okay, in the game, queen to g6 was played. I have to remind everyone, this is a rapid game, so not all options can be explored, even though, of course, they considered all of them. Queen captures on a7 now, and here just g3. So what do you play here? Your rook is hanging here, but there is something that you can play, and that is queen to a8 check. We have king to c7, and now if you don't have a good continuation, you don't really have all that much. So feel free to pause the video here and try to find what Nihal played while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on starting to sacrifice something. That's always the way to go. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it's knight to b5 check. And now this is one of those checks, or rather one of those peace offerings that has to be accepted. If you don't, I'm just briefly going to show you what happens if king to b6, then you force the king to capture it. Queen a7 check. Now this is covered by the knight. You have to capture it. King captures, and now you happily invite the king closer and deeper into your position. King b4, rook f4 check, we go deeper, king b3, we're gonna go queen to b6 with check, king c2, now rook c4 check, and after king to d3, for example, queen to b3 will be checkmate. So that's one option, and another one after knight to b5 check, you could also go somewhere like king to d7, but that again doesn't help. We're just gonna castle queenside with tempo, as the rook here will be attacked twice, so it doesn't matter. King e6, rook to e1 with check, king to d7. Now we're gonna play queen captures on b7 with check. We don't have to grab unnecessary material. King to e8, and now rook captures on e7, and that's it. Bishop captures, queen captures on e7 will be checkmate. So here, after this knight to b5 check, Keymer said, all right, we have to capture it, so c captures on b5, and now comes rook to c1 with check. So can you finish this attack? Otherwise, I mean, your king is on e1, there's a pass pawn on g3, your rook is hanging, it could be very, very unpleasant. The problem is all of black's pieces are undeveloped, and basically only the queen on g6 is doing something. So here, king to d7, but now rook to d2 with check. Now we go after the rook, king to e6, and now queen captures on d8. The cleanest way to well, bring the game closer to the end. And now, again, not much you can do here. King to f7, trying to hide the king somewhere, but now comes rook to e2. Now with a triple attack here on the knight, and there's no way to add more defenders to it. So here, if you move the knight, let's say knight f5, it's not a problem. Just queen d5 check, and all of these squares are covered by the bishop, by the queen. So your only option is to block this queen e6, and then we just capture it with checkmate. So after rook to e2, we have g2, a final sneaky attempt by Keymer to kind of bring a little bit of madness into the position, threatening g1 queen, and now you're inviting white to capture the pawn, but also remove one of the attackers from the center of the board. So here, rook captures on g2 was played, but now queen e4 check, checking the king and attacking the rook, but luckily you can bring the rook back. Queen to b4 with check, now king f1. We have rook captures on h4, trying to give up some material to eliminate one of the attackers, and then, okay, the king is on an open board, maybe you can do something, maybe you can, at least get a perpetual, but now rook to f2 with check, king to g6, and now bishop captures on h4. Now, Nihal says there's no more chance here for black. We have queen captures, and now queen to d3 with check, king h6, and now queen to e3 with check. So you just have to make sure that none of the none of black's pieces are allowed back into the game, and now it's 2 rooks basically against a knight and the queen, a knight and the bishop, so there's really no hope here. G5 was played, blocking this, and now you could play something like king to G1 to threaten to pick up the queen this way. In the game, Nihal played king to G2, now he's threatening rook to H1 to win the queen. Now queen G4 check, king to H1, and now knight to G6. So he's able to activate his pieces, but now rook to G1. So how do you play this? We have queen to H5 and now rook to H2. So almost winning the queen, but now not quite. Knight to H4 blocking, and now comes the finishing touch, rook captures on G5. So just absolute madness of a game. Just spectacular how these young players are just, brawling it out. So queen captures, and now of course a rook captures on H4 with check. The queen is pinned, so you cannot move the queen from this diagonal. We have king to G6 and now queen to E4 with check. And now we're gonna win the queen, as there's not much black can do about this. King F6 was played, now rook goes to F4 with check. The queen and rook cover the E and F file, so the king has to go back to the G file. King to G7, now comes rook to G4, and it was in this position on 146 that Vincent Keymer resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. The queen will be lost, and that's it. There is no point in playing this, of course. So really an amazing game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Like I said, use hashtag suggestion if you found a favorite of yours from this tournament. I do have some of my favorites, but if you have some that I might have missed, because there are a lot of games being played, do use it so I can go through them and check it out. So yeah, that's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Congratulations to both of them on such an amazing attacking game. I would like to thank Michael Hildebrand, Mario Encinosa, Rick Evano, Stanley Hill, and Auk Meinsma for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing the coverage of this very nice tournament, as well as the one that we're covering now, checking up on your wonderful suggestions and whatever else happens in the chess world. So thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day. And I just realized the Meadow stuck his head in the pillow for some reason. Meadow. Yeah, he's alive. Okay, see you soon.